Right now at 5:30, vessel at Hudson Yards is now closed indefinitely after a teenager jumps to his death. Well,
after cops say a 14-year-old boy took his own life in front of his horrified family.
December 2016, the Architect's newspaper. A journalist named Audrey Walks publishes an article about a 150-foot structure being built in New York City. She describes the design: open air, waist-high railings, straight drop to concrete. And she writes 7 words: when you build high, folks will jump. She even pointed to NYU's Bobst Library, where students had killed themselves by jumping from balconies, as proof. She wrote that the developers seem not to have learned from Bobst or from the city's bridges and iconic tall buildings. 3 years later, the structure opened. 3 years after that, 4 people were dead. That warning, published public on the record, was later quoted in an official letter from Community Board 4 to the developer. They read her words back to them. They begged them to install barriers. The developer said no. This is the story of Hudson Yards, the most expensive private real estate development in American history. $25 billion, and the $200 million staircase at its center, where 4 young people died because a billionaire developer thought safety barriers would ruin the view. But the deaths aren't even the worst part. The worst part is where the money came from. Hudson Yards sits on Manhattan's far west side. For decades, this was a rail yard, 30 acres of open train tracks used by Amtrak and the Long Island Railroad, one of the last undeveloped spaces on the island. Building here meant constructing a massive concrete platform over active rail lines and then building an entire neighborhood on top. In 2004, New York decided to make it happen. If the city issued $4.5 billion in public bonds to fund infrastructure, including $2.3 billion to extend the 7 subway line. The bet was simple: build the subway, developers come, new buildings generate tax revenue, bonds get paid off. The developer who won the project was Related Companies, run by Stephen Ross, one of the richest real estate developers in America. His plan: 16 towers, 28 acres, luxury condos, a 5-star hotel, offices for BlackRock and Warner Media, a performing arts center, and a shopping mall stocked with Dior, Fendi, Bulgari, and Patek Philippe. Total public subsidies, approximately $6 billion. Tax breaks alone, $1.36 billion. But that wasn't enough money, so they tapped a program called EB-5. That the EB-5 visa program lets wealthy foreigners, mostly from China, invest $500,000 to $1 million into American real estate in exchange for permanent residency visas. The catch: the money has to go to targeted employment areas, economically distressed zones with unemployment 150% above the national average. Hudson Yards sits on some of the most valuable land in the Western Hemisphere. It does not qualify as economically distressed by any definition on Earth. So, the state agency, Empire State Development, drew a map. And this map is a real document. It was obtained through a Freedom of Information request by journalist Kristen Capps at CityLab. The map starts at Hudson Yards on 31st Street. Then it snakes north through Midtown. Then it runs through Central Park, where nobody lives and unemployment is literally undefined. Then it continues into Harlem, where it captures public housing projects with high unemployment. By chaining these census tracts together, luxury towers and empty park and housing projects, they created a single targeted employment area with an aggregated unemployment rate high enough to qualify. New York's public advocate held up this map at a press conference and called it stunning. He said Hudson Yards was built on the backs of the New Yorkers with the most need. ABC News called it creative financial gerrymandering. Through this map, Hudson Yards raised at least $1.2 billion in EB-5 funds. Some reports from NYU's Stern Center put the figure as high as $1.6 billion, money that was designed by the federal government to help communities like Harlem, money that instead built a shopping mall where Cartier sells $30,000 bracelets. And it's legal, every bit of it. Now imagine you live in one of those Harlem housing projects. Your building needs repairs, your neighborhood needs jobs, and you find out that $1.2 billion earmarked for distressed communities like yours was rerouted, using a map that runs through an empty park, to build a luxury mall 100 blocks south. Would you be angry? Now, let's talk about what they built with that money. Because the centerpiece of Hudson Yards is a $200 million structure that became the most controversial piece of public art in New York City history. The vessel was designed by Thomas Heatherwick, the British designer behind the 2012 Olympic cauldron. It's a 150-foot honeycomb made of 154 interconnecting flights of stairs, meeting at 80 platforms. Stephen Ross wanted something transformational, monumental. He told The New Yorker that when he first saw Heatherwick's design, "My guys around here thought I was out of my goddamn mind." The original budget was $75 million. The complexity of manufacturing 154 interlocking steel staircases in Italy and shipping them to New York tripled it to $200 million. When it opened in March 2019, it became an instant Instagram sensation. But within days, two controversies erupted. First, the developer tried to claim copyright over every photo taken of the vessel. If you snapped a picture on your phone, Hudson Yards technically owned it. The backlash forced them to reverse the policy within days. Second, and far more serious, people noticed the railings, 4 feet tall, waist height, on every level. No mesh, no netting, no raised barriers, open air, and a 150-foot drop to concrete. Now, Audrey Wachs had warned about this in 2016. Community Board 4 had raised concerns. An architecture professor at the City College of New York called the vessel like an M.C. Escher nightmare. Relentless, gaudy, cold. He said people who feel alienated may not be very well supported by an experience like that. February 1st, 2020, 11 months after opening, Peter DeSalvo, 19, a freshman at Sacred Heart University from New Jersey, jumped from the 6th floor. He died in front of tourists. Community Board 4 sent a letter to related companies. They quoted Audrey Wachs's 2016 warning word for word. They wrote, "Installing adequate physical barriers on high places can prevent or substantially reduce suicides, especially impulsive ones." They pointed to NYU's Bobst Library as proof. They urged Related to raise the barriers. It's Related did not raise the barriers. December 22nd, 2020. Yosheved Gurari, 24, from Brooklyn, jumped from the top. She had scheduled a posthumous note on Instagram. January 11th, 2021. Franklin Washington, 21, from Texas, jumped. 3 deaths in 11 months. All under 25. The vessel closed. The community board wrote to Related again, stronger this time. Putting up this barrier is the only mechanism to truly prevent someone who is determined to jump. That's what works. We told Related that. They just acted as if we know better. An anonymous employee inside Heatherwick's own studio leaked a statement to the New York Times expressing frustration with the developer's resistance to higher barriers. The employee said, "We designed safety barriers for the vessel a while back. It's now time to install these." The barriers existed. They'd been designed. They were ready. Related chose not to install them. Instead, Related reopened the vessel 4 months later with a buddy system. No solo visitors. They tripled security, added a $10 entry fee, posted suicide prevention signage, partnered with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation for positive messaging. But they did not raise the railings. July 29th, 2021, 1 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. A 14-year-old boy from New Jersey, visiting with his parents and 4 family members, jumped from the 8th floor. He died at the scene. A buddy system doesn't work when a child is already with his family. Lowell Kern, the community board chair, said what needed to be said. This young man's death is on them. I understand they feel great remorse that this has happened. They have a bigger responsibility than to feel bad about it. Stephen Ross told the Daily Beast, "We thought we did everything that would really prevent this." He said he was considering closing the vessel permanently. The vessel closed for 3 years. It finally reopened in October 2024 with steel mesh safety nets. The top floor is permanently sealed. The $200 million climbable sculpture, designed to be explored freely, is now a cage staircase with a $10 ticket. 4 young people died. The youngest was 14. Safety barriers had been designed and were ready to install. The developer chose not to. 3 times they reopened without barriers. 3 times someone died, but the vessel is just the most visible failure. The rest of Hudson Yards isn't doing much better. On Neiman Marcus, the anchor tenant occupying 3 floors of the luxury mall, went bankrupt in 2020 and closed permanently. Little Spain Food Hall shut down. Shake Shack closed. The mall, designed to draw millions of visitors, became an eerily empty corridor of luxury stores with more staff than customers. Phase 2, which was supposed to add 8 more towers by 2024, is indefinitely delayed. The rail yards that need to be decked over sit untouched. No construction, no timeline. And the tax breaks keep getting more absurd. The developers at 20 Hudson Yards, a luxury shopping mall for Tiffany, Cartier, and Piaget, received $78 million in property tax breaks between 2020 and 2024. At the same time, they filed lawsuits against the city demanding even bigger tax reductions. The tax commission gave them $467 million in assessment cuts. When that still wasn't enough, they sued again. 6 lawsuits in 8 years, demanding lower taxes while still collecting billions in public subsidies. A New School economist said, "The city is providing massive property tax breaks for that development, which is lessening city resources that could be available to fund infrastructure. The money that was supposed to flow back to New York, the entire premise behind the $4.5 billion in public bonds, is being systematically reduced by the developers who received the investment." So, here's what Hudson Yards is today. A $25 billion development funded by $6 billion in public subsidies. $1.2 billion diverted from a program meant to help Harlem, using a gerrymandered map that ran through Central Park. A $200 million staircase where 4 people died because a billionaire developer refused to install barriers that were already designed. An anchor department store that went bankrupt. A shopping mall that's half empty. A second phase that's indefinitely stalled, and developers suing the city for lower taxes while still collecting billions in breaks. The New York Times called it a vast neoliberal Zion. The Guardian called it bargain basement stuff that would feel more at home in a second-tier city of a developing economy. New York's public advocate said it is quite clear that this project was not for the majority of this city, and the $4.5 billion in bonds still being paid off by New York City taxpayers. So here's the question. If you're a New Yorker paying taxes, riding the subway, he's watching your rent climb every year, and your city gave $6 billion in tax breaks to a developer who used money meant for Harlem to build a Cartier store, and 4 people died on a staircase because he wouldn't install barriers that already existed, what would you do? Would you accept it? Would you fight it? Or would you walk past the vessel on your way to work and try not to look up? Tell me in the comments, because phase 2 is coming, and the tax breaks haven't stopped. I'll see you in the next one. Note, if you or someone you know is struggling, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988.